So students, in the previous classes, we have started our discussion on the topologies, and we have covered star topology and bus topology. These topology we have discussed, and going ahead also we have discussed about the mesh topology. So these three topology we have discussed. So going ahead with the next uh, type of topology, that is the ring topology. So what basically happens in case of the ring topology? So here, if you look at the diagram, uh, every device is connected in a point to point connection, and these are the two stations which wants to communicate, and between the stations uh, there will be a ring like structure, and all the stations are connected to that. So each device has dedicated point to point connection with only the two devices. So if you consider this, it requires two connections, one to connect to its left neighbor and another to connect to its right neighbor. So in this way, the devices are connected. So how the transmission will take place, or how they communicate? So a signal is passed along the ring in one direction from device to device until it reaches its destination. So if suppose we make it as a direction from for this device, if the direction is this in this way from here to here, or let me take this. So if we consider the direction in this way, so even if the device wants to communicate to this device or this device, the data has to be passed in this manner itself. So if it is in the one direction movement, so signal is passed along the ring in one direction from device to device until it reaches its destination. And in this we have something special called as the repeater. So what are these repeaters, or why these repeaters are required? Suppose in this particular diagram we have only a few devices, but in reality, if there are n number of such devices, they are connected, then it will be very difficult to send that signal from one station to another station without losing the signal strength or signal capacity, we can say. So for that purpose, we use something called as the repeaters. So what these repeaters will do? So repeaters are the devices that are used in the network, not only in case of ring topology, but basically they work at the physical layer of the OSI model. So wherever we have the connections at the end point, we can use these repeaters. So repeaters will collect the signals from the previous node or previous station, and they strengthen those signals. Suppose so that if you are sending the data from here to say some 100 kilometers, so then it will be very difficult. I'm just giving an example. So in such cases, as the data is moving from one station to another station, its capacity will be reduced, or it weakens. So to overcome this drawback, the repeaters are used. So repeaters basically collect the signals from the previous nodes, and they regenerate the signals, or they uh, add the strength to the signal, so that the original data or the original signal that is being transferred from station A to station B will be as it is, and it will avoid the noise in the channel. So if there is any disturbance, those things can be removed by using these repeaters. So that's why we use these repeaters. So this is about the uh, ring topology. This is the basic concept of the ring topology. So let us go ahead with the advantages and disadvantages of this. So what can be the advantages? Easy to install and reconfiguration. So easily we can install, and any device if you want to add to that, we require just the device, and two wires are required, and we can add it to the existing architecture. Similarly, connect to immediate neighbors. So one device can be connected to others. Easily we can connect to the neighboring devices. It moves to two connections for any moving. So whenever we want to add a particular station, or we want to delete a node, we have to just take that particular device with the repeater, and two connections are required. So if you attach it, we can easily do it. Easy of fault isolation. Here they are given that the ring consists of something called as or these stations consist of something called as the alarm. So if there is any problem with particular station, there will be an alarm, and by looking at that alarm signal, the network administrators can check where is the fault is actually existing. So directly they can find that particular station or that particular node, and they can easily solve that particular problem. So easy of fault isolation. So fault detection and isolation is also very simple in case of the ring topology. But there are some drawbacks as well. So what are the drawbacks? It is a unidirectional. So again, in case of ring topology, there are two types of rings we can use. One common one that we use is the single ring. Sometimes if you want to avoid the problems, we may use the two belts, we can say, or single belt and two belt. These are the two types of ring topology again. So if you are using this unidirectional single ring, then there will be problem. Consider that there is this station wants to communicate with this station, but it is too far away. And if you are using the direction in this fashion, as I told earlier, then it will take a lot of time to send the particular data, and it has to go through all the stations and repeaters and so on. So it will take a lot of time. Not only the time, but also the signal may be lost, even though if you use the repeaters, but it will take a lot of time, and there can be traffic in the channel. So because of that, it may be it is a one of the major drawback. And apart from that, if suppose that say that if you are using the unidirectional fashion, and if this station is working fine, the data will come here. And but if there is any problem with this particular station, we cannot, even though if this station and this station are working fine, but if because of this station is not working fine, the data cannot be transmitted. What I'm trying to tell is, assume that we want to send the data from this device to this device, but the direction is in this way. Okay, if you are sending the information from this station to this station in this way, and assume that the data has reached to this station, but if this station is not working properly, if there is any problem, then even though if these devices and belt and other things are working fine, we cannot send the data forward, because we need to solve this issue. So because of that, there is a drawback. And one broken device can disable the entire network. So this weakness can be solved by using a dual ring or a switch capable of closing of the break. So to avoid such problems, as I told, we can use dual rings. So what are basically dual rings are? Like for example, if I use here, I'm using only one ring, but apart from that, I can use another ring. So one ring will have the direction in this way. Another ring, I can put the direction of data transmission in this way. So like that also we can use to avoid the problems. So these are the important aspects about the ring topology. So you need to draw this diagram in case of ring topology. So what are the basic things about this? It is a point-to-point connection. Each device has dedicated point-to-point connection to its neighbors, or its left and right neighbor, we can say. So a signal is passed along the ring in one direction, so from device to device until it reaches the destination. And each device incorporates a repeater. For every device inside this ring will be having a repeater. To that a station is connected. Repeater is very important. So a 2 marks question may be asked, what is the task of the repeater, or why we require these repeaters? So basically, when we are sending the data for a long distance, and if there is any problem with the traffic, or basically the signal capacity will be lost, or the strength will be reduced. So to overcome this drawback, repeaters are used. Repeaters basically regenerates the signals, and they gives or they strengthen the signals, so that the same information can be transferred from station to the, I mean, from the source to the destination without any loss in the data. And also, if there are any noise in the channel, those disturbances or noise can be removed by using this repeaters. So these are the basic characteristics, and then some advantages and disadvantage of the ring topology. Are we getting it, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Next, we'll go ahead with the hybrid topology. As the name suggests, hybrid, it is a combination of one or two topologies. So, example, having a main star topology with each branch connecting several stations in a bus topology. So that can be considered as a hybrid topology. Basically, we use this hybrid topology where we have different kinds of topologies, and at the workstations where we want to connect many multiple devices together. Suppose say that we have some 50 computers at our college, and we have connected all these 50 computers with the bus topology, but we want to make one endpoint to all those 50 devices. So for that we can use star topology or any other topology. So it is a combination of two topology that we call it as a hybrid topology. So for example, you can consider this. Just a minute. So here we can consider it as a hybrid topology. So there are different devices. If you consider this is the bus topology, and here we can consider it as a star topology. Here we can have a ring topology and so on. So this is what we can have in case of the hybrid topology. So one topology acts as a backbone. So if we are using this bus topology, if there is any problem, then we can pass it on to this star topology. So one particular topology acts as a backbone to the other. So these are the uh, different types of topology we have with related to the topologies. Any doubts still here? Whatever we have discussed with related to the topologies, different types of topology that we have discussed. Just remember that you have to draw the diagram, write the characteristics of each, and then advantages and disadvantages depending on number of marks are allocated for the question. If it is just a 4 marks, draw the diagram, write the characteristics, one advantage, one disadvantage is sufficient. If it is for 6 to 8 marks, draw the diagram, all the characteristics in detail, and 2 to 3 disadvantages and 2 to 3 advantages and disadvantages. In that way, you need to write it. But diagrams are very much important. Or they may ask, explain different types of topologies for 10 marks. Most I think last to last time it has been asked to explain all the different types of topologies. And then we'll be going ahead with the next, that is categories of network. I'm not going to detail in this because it is not actually mentioned in the syllabus, but we'll be just taking an overview of this. So the primary categories of local area network, WAN, and metropolitan area network. So basically LAN covers area less than 2 miles, or basically we use in this colleges, organizations where we have say 100 or 200 computer systems. So there we can use this local area network. And then wide area network can be used worldwide, and metropolitan area network can be used between a LAN and a WAN. Like for a city, we can say it can cover entire city of 10 to 20 kilometers and so on. So in such cases, we can use this wide area network, I mean MAN, metropolitan area network, and so on. And basically LANs are privately owned links devices in the same office building and so on. So simple LAN, 2 PCs and 1 printer in home. This can be an example for our local area network. So our size is limited to few kilometers and allow resources to be shared. So we can share hardware, software, or data can be shared with local area network. I'm just going in brief about this because these are the common things. So this can be considered as a local area network. Here you can see that all these are the connected, and here you can have the hub. So size, so this is where we use this LAN cables to connect to our computers. Basically whatever we use, that is called as a local area LAN cable, and its speed and other details they have mentioned. Similarly, we can have wide area network where you can see that every particular device, okay, or every particular station we can say. So this is present at one area, this is present at another area, and so on. So in between we can have the switches, hubs, routers, and so on. provides long distance transmission of data over large geographic area, country, continent, and world. So over the globe, this is spread wide area network. And then we can have this metropolitan network size between LAN and WAN. So it acts in between the LAN and the WAN. So like this, we can have the interconnection of networks. So the networking model, whenever we heard about this networking model, we come across two things, that is the OSI model and the TCP/IP model. So as you already have studied this, I will go in brief about this OSI model. We use the concept of layers in our daily life. As an example, let us consider two friends who want to communicate. So we can take some simple example of the layered approach, what this layered approach is all about. So suppose consider that two friends wants to communicate. In the earlier days, they want to send a post by using the mail services. So what basically they will do, a person or a sender or receiver, he will write the letter, put in envelope and drop it in the mailbox. The same letter is carried out from the mailbox to the post office, and then that letter is delivered to a carrier by the post office, and from there the parcel is carried out from the postman or through the, basically here we come across the transport agencies, like it can be, the parcel can be transferred by train, plane, and so on, or by bus services and so on, then it will reach the destination. So here we can see that this is the layered approach that we have. So in our day-to-day life, similar to this, the same approach is used in the networking model as well. So whenever in this example, you can see that every layer, like these are the higher layers, middle layers, and lower layers. Similarly, in the OSI model also, we have the same concepts. So every layer is responsible for some particular task, and they will do that task with the help of the services provided between the layers. So here the sender, or if you consider the top level of OSI model, we have the application layer where the user is actually interacting with the browser, or he wants to send a mail, or he want to download some files and so on. So at the top we have the application layer level, and then in between we have the different layers. So these layers can communicate with the interfaces, and then at the lowermost layer, the actual data will be converted in terms of bits, zeros and ones, because the data that we want to send has to be in the electrical signal format. So it will be sent to the next device or to the destination machine. And as you can see here, only this layer is connected physically to this layer, and other layers are not physically connected to the next device. So this is the example, and we can see that every layer has got certain particular tasks or services, and by using these all combination of services and the functions, we can achieve the communication between two devices. And this can be any form of transmission. I mean, it can be connection oriented or connectionless. We can use the wire cables, or we can use optical fiber and so on. That is nothing but acts as a transport agency. The same thing is applied in the OSI model as well. So the brief history, established in 1947. So this was done, I mean, the International Standards Organization. ISO is the company or the organization who is been into the networking, and which actually gives the uh, guidelines, or it will make some agreements and standards, so that all those will be used by the common man, or whenever we want to use the communication, we need to follow these guidelines given by the ISO. So it's a multinational body dedicated to worldwide agreement on internal standards. So whenever we want to make some standards, it has to be given by the ISO. So we basically go for the ISO certification. We check whether it is ISO certified or no, and then only we proceed with so and so activities. So an ISO standard that covers all aspects of network communications is the open system interconnection. So that is what we call as the OSM model. So it was first introduced in the late 1970s. So in that era, so OSM model was designed by the ISO standard. And we need to understand that OSI, it was just a model. Like we can say that it was just a concept, but in reality, it was not implemented. It was implemented, but it was not that much successful because of some drawbacks, we can say. But the currently the one model that we are using is the TCP/IP model. So OSI model gave us the idea that there will be 7 layers, and every layer will have a certain particular task, and every layer will communicate with the other layers, and then the data can be transmitted from source to destination and so on. But to implement this, we had, or we wanted to have some a model where we can have some strict protocols and we can actually do that communication. So for that, we went on with the invention and we came up with the TCP/IP protocol suite, which will tell us this particular layer is doing this particular task with the help of a certain protocol. So that was mainly used rather than this OSI model. So till now, I mean, in today's life as well, we use this TCP/IP model. So TCP/IP is, in practical way, TCP/IP model is working. OSI is like a concept, but practically we are using the TCP/IP model. So we need to remember that ISO is the organization and OSI is the model. So how this OSI model is made up of? It is made up of 7 layers. In the shortcut, you can remember this as APST NDP. So all these layers you can remember in one word, APST NDP. So every layer you can say that provide some services and it has got some functionalities, and every layer provides the services to the next layer and so on. So this is what we have it related to the OSI model. So then coming ahead with the actual diagram of this OSI model, you might have studied this, but here in this textbook, they have given a different kind of diagram, but that diagram is also fine. And as you can see here, can somebody brief me about these things? Why basically we wanted this particular model? Or let me ask you one question. Suppose say that we have two devices A and B. I want to communicate. I have my Windows 10 and the other device is having Linux. Can we communicate? I'm using operating system as Windows 10. Another system is using the operating system as say Linux, and this device want to send a particular mail to this device. Can they communicate or no?
Yes, sir.
Any other answers? Or you can take another example. A device A is having a hardware capacity of, let's say, for example, 4 GB of RAM, 1 terabytes of hard disk, but this device is not that much having capabilities. It has got less RAM and less hard disk, you can say. Can they communicate? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
No,
So basically, why this model was required, or why it was needed? Basically, when two devices wants to communicate, irrespective of their logical structure, irrespective of their hardware and software that they are working on, they wanted to have a common way or a bridge where they can communicate. So here you can see that irrespective of the capabilities of device A and irrespective of capabilities B, they can still communicate, but provided what they have to follow, they have to follow a common guideline, or they want to follow the common protocol, we can say. So if that is there, then we can easily do a communication. So the OSI model was the first one that was introduced, where we can avoid this logical existence of the devices, and irrespective of the logical structure of the devices, we can still communicate. So that was being proposed by the OSI model. That is was the reason behind introducing this OSI model. And here you can see that these are the different layers in the OSI model, starting with application, presentation, session, and so on. And we have got from this particular diagram, I wanted you to identify what are these things. So we can have the different groups. Basically, the bottom layers like physical layers, data link layers, network layers, these acts like supporting layers for the network. Okay, the data link layer, physical layer, and network layer, they acts as a supportive layers for the network. And the application layer, presentation layer, session layer, they also act like a supporting layers, and they are related for the users, we can say. So these layers, application, presentation, and session, they act like a user support layers, because user is the one who is involved in communicating with the application layer and so on. And then we have another group, that is the transport layer. So this is how the OSI model is being organized. We can segregate into three groups. The first group can be physical layer, data link layer, and network layer. And the other group can be application layer, session, presentation layer, and session layer. And we can have the transport. So these layers, the bottom layers, layer 1, 2, 3, they acts like a supporting layers for the network, because they are always involved in converting bits and then packets and so on, frames and packets. And for so they are acting like a supporting layers for the network. And these layers, application layer, presentation layer, session layers, here these layers acts like a user support layers, and the transport layer is involved in transmitting of the information. And when you look into this, the physical layer is the only one which actually communicates with the other physical layer of the other device. But whereas the other layers like application, presentation layer, they cannot directly interact with the other device. And here you can see that we have this peer-to-peer protocol. So application layer at this can communicate with application layer at this, but only by using the protocol. So though there is no direct connection. So wherever we do not have any direct connection, it is being represented with dotted lines. And wherever we have the direct connection, that is being used with the solid lines. So what basically we do, we want to access some information or we want to send an email. So basically that is the one where a user will be interacting with the computer or in the internet. He will open the browser, he will do some activities. So whenever you want to communicate with that, the data has to be passed from layer 7 to layer 1. In this way the data has to be passed, and while passing the data, it requires the interconnection between these two layers, and also it takes the support of the other layers. Suppose if you consider the layer 3, so if it wants to give any support to layer 4, it takes the services made available by layer 2 and it provides the services to layer 4. Similarly, if layer 5 requires some services, so layer 4 takes the support of layer 3 and it provides the services to layer 6, and so on. So this is how the basic idea of the OSI model. And the data that we actually are working on in the browser or in the user interface, that is not actually being transmitted to the device B, because this device, I mean, when we say that there is a physical connection, this physical connection will be always in the electronic form, or it is basically in the electric form. So the signals will be always passed in terms of zeros and ones at the physical layer. So the data that we are using in our day-to-day life is not in terms of zeros and ones. So it will go down from application layer to the physical layer, and here actually it will be converted into binary form or in the zeros and one form, and that will be transmitted to the physical layer. And in this way, the data transmission can takes place between two devices, and these layers like application, presentation, session, and transport, there is no direct communication with the layers present on the other device, and all these layers are working at device A. Similarly, all these layers are working at device B. But when these layers want to communicate, they can communicate by using only the protocols. But whereas the bottommost layer, physical layer, can communicate directly with that particular device. So this is the basic idea behind the OSI model, or the basic working of the OSI model. And as we can see that in this particular diagram, every device, okay, will add its information, and possibly there can be a possibility of a header and a trailer. Like every device, I mean every layer takes the information from the upper layer. It will add its headers and trailers. We can say headers are nothing but I am sending the data from this, and my unique number or my value is this, and so on. So these headers and trailers can be added. Basically the trailers will be added at only layer 2, but there can be possibility of other layers can also add the headers and trailers. So when the data is coming at the station A, or we can say considered as a source, it will take the data, it will add its header, and then that will be sent to the next layer. So at this layer, what this D6 will do, D here stands for the data. So D6 will take this data from D7, it will add its data, or it will add its header, and that will be transmitted to the next layer, and so on. So here we can see that we are taking it like a encapsulation. So you have studied this in case of OOPS concept, wrapping up of data and objects and so on. So every layer will take the data from the upper layer, and it will wrap it out with its headers, and that data will be sent to the bottommost layer or at the physical layer. So at this physical layer, the actual data will be transmitted in terms of zeros and ones by using the transmission medium. And when it reaches the destination, at this the data will be unwrapped. So you can see that here we have the solid lines, solid headers, but here we have the dotted headers. That means when this D2 takes the data from this particular layer at the destination machine, we can consider this as the source machine and this is the destination machine. So every layer will take the data what is required for it by removing that particular header, and the remaining part of the data will be transmitted to the next layer. So again D3 will remove its header, or we can say the unwrapping. Here we have the wrapping of headers and trailers. Here the headers and trailers are unwrapped, and it will take the data what is required, and that data will be transmitted to the next layer, and so on. Then at the top layer, at the destination machine, the user can use that particular data which has been sent by this particular source machine. So this is what is the basic idea behind the OSI model, or this is the basic working concept of the OSI model. And you might ask one question, why this network, data link, and physical layer has been used again here? Can somebody tell me why we use this? In the earlier diagram that we studied in the third semester, there also we had the similar kind of diagram, and there also we had this network layer, data link layer, and physical layer. Can somebody tell me what is the meaning of this particular thing? Anybody can answer? Just open your notes of previous semester and study about subnets. That time you will understand this. In the next class I will explain you, but try to work on this.
Sir, it will make the frames and packets and adds the header and trailer.
here
And the logical link control layers.
this we know, like here we have network layer, data link layer, physical layer, but why again they are showing this again?
Yes, sir.
This is my question. Already we have these in this network layer, data link layer and physical layer, but why they have done shown this again? Just work on this, everyone.